Hi, my name is Catherine Trice, and I have created this tutorial in order to introduce 10th grade biology students to genetics by connecting what we've learned about meiosis to Punnett squares. I plan to start with a recap of how genetic information is passed from parent to offspring, and then I will explain how it relates to alleles and traits. From there, I will explain the law of dominance and how we use these rules to construct a Punnett square. And then finally, how we can use these Punnett squares to analyze and calculate characteristics of potential offspring. Specifically, I will be focusing on Gwinnett County Standard 7E, which requires students to develop and use mathematical models to investigate probabilities of inheritance. So at the end of this lesson, students should be able to use Punnett squares to show how traits are inherited, and they should be able to interpret these Punnett squares to calculate probabilities of offspring's genotypes and phenotypes. Alright, so I'm going to start off with a recap on how genetic information is passed from parent to offspring. So how does this happen? So remember, with asexual reproduction, it takes two parents to create new offspring. So each parent gives half of the genetic information. This process, the cellular division that creates haploids, which are half of the information, is called meiosis. So meiosis is going to allow for each parent to create either an egg or a sperm, which are called gametes, and those will come together to form a zygote, also known as a fertilized egg. So let's say that these represent the chromosomes within each gamete. When they come together, they form a zygote. So how does this all relate to genetics, specifically alleles and traits? So traits would be just an overall term, meaning some type of characteristic of an organism. An allele refers to a specific variation. So there can be multiple types of alleles for one specific trait. Take, for example, hair color. That would be the trait, whereas the different alleles would be maybe red, blonde, or brown. So now that we understand what alleles and traits are, we can talk about the law of dominance. So for any given trait, there are, as we said, different alleles, and some are dominant and some are recessive. Typically, when we represent a dominant trait, we use a capital letter, and when we talk about a recessive trait, we use a lowercase letter. Basically, all this law means is that if there is a dominant allele present, it will mask the recessive allele and only show the dominant trait. The only way to show a recessive trait is for it to be two little r's. Alright, so let's do an example. Say we were given this problem to construct a Punnett square for the following parent cross. This is one parent, this is the other. So we would set this up by doing a square with 4 quadrants. Since each parent can only give one allele, this parent, number 1, will be able to give a big R and a little r. So we're going to put this one option and the second option to the left of this one side of the box. This parent can give either the big R or the little r as well, so we're going to set them up on the top. Now that shows how each one can just give one at a time. So then we will, for this first box, which each of these boxes will represent a possible zygote or offspring. So big R will be one option. Big R, little r big R, little r, little r, little r. So this will be our full Punnett square. So now if we are asked to provide the genotypes for these potential offspring, we would talk about the genotypic makeup. So the actual genes. So for one of them, the genotype would be big R, big R. For two of them, it would be big R, little r. And then for one, it would be little r, little r. So those are our possible genotypes. And if we were to put these into a percentage, this would be 25%. Since there are two of these, it will be 50%. And since there's one little r, that will as well be 25%. We could also think about these as ratios. So since there are 4 boxes, you could look at them as 1 out of 4, 2 out of 4, 1 out of 4. So the ratio for the genotype would be 1 to 2 to 1. And then you would also need to indicate big R, big R, big R, little r, little r, little r. Now, how about the phenotypes? If we're looking at the phenotypes, we're thinking about the physical makeup, like the characteristics. So the possible phenotypes would be red and white. How many of these are going to be red and how many are going to be white? Looking at our genotypes and remembering the law of dominance, we can see that any organism with the dominant trait, meaning the uppercase R, is going to show that dominant trait. In this case is red. So looking at the big R's here, 3 out of 4 will be red, and then this last one will be white. So doing it as a percentage, you could say 75% red, 25% white. As a ratio, it would be a 3 red to 1 white. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.